Welcome back to the Polish Podcast, where we embolden women in their faith and work. I'm your host, Jane Dorman. Your work matters. And at Polish Network, we provide the connection you crave, professional development you deserve, and the gospel that you need. Join us each episode as we deep dive the themes we're exploring in the Polish community, featuring a variety of guests, sharing their perspectives and experiences as Christian working women. Well, whatever brought you here today, we are thrilled that you chose to join us, and we hope these stories spark a renewed sense of purpose and embolden you to flourish on your leadership journey. Well, today we're wrapping up our exploration of this month's theme, leading with collaboration. And collaboration is so much more than just joining forces. It's about navigating the complexities of different perspectives and the personalities and the art of letting go. All these easy things, right? Collaboration is an invitation to embrace vulnerability and to exercise our trust in others in the process, as well as God's timing and His provision. And I hear you saying, Jane, that is way easier said than done. Because this invitation to collaboration, it's not easy. It stirs up fear within us of relinquishing control and doubts about asking for help and worries of slowing down our pace, right? Maybe you've been wrestling with this tension of collaborative leadership. Perhaps you feel a stirring within you to pursue collaboration, only to be tempered by hesitancy or fear. And can I just say to you right now that you're in a wrestling match? That is a normal experience. Collaboration is hard because it requires some level of sacrifice. Yet amidst the challenges we face in this arena, there is an opportunity for us to expand beyond our imagination, which ultimately will lead to innovative solutions that serve others well, and it honors God. I am so excited to introduce you to my real-life friend, Dr. Amber Teufel. She's the group head microbiologist at Procter and Gamble and is primarily responsible for baby, family, and feminine care groups, specifically within the life sciences. She is by far the smartest person I know. She has such a unique way of deeply thinking about things in her life and her leadership and how she pursues God through all of it. She's also passionate about people, as I'm sure you're going to pick up on in our conversation today. But like all of our conversations that we've had thus far, we know that our work journeys all start somewhere.
I was one of those kids that grew up in a small town. I grew up thinking I wanted to be a medical doctor. That's the only option, really. If you were going to go to college, you either became a lawyer or a doctor. And so I got it in my head I was going to go to medical school. And so I got the grades. I went off to medical school, very quickly realized that wasn't for me. I love people, didn't really like the medical side of things, unfortunately. So that was kind of a very expensive pivot, and realized that I really liked the research. And so luckily I have really good parents that supported me, and I ended up going to graduate school instead. And I got my PhD in microbiology from Miami University in Oxford, Ohio. And I mostly studied climate change. And so I got pretty much as far away from medical school as you could possibly get.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
I became an environmental microbiologist instead. And I did some fun work in Antarctica and got to see the world, and came back home, finished the PhD, finished a postdoc, and then was hired at Procter and Gamble. And what's kind of interesting about that is nobody gets a PhD in how to preserve baby wipes or how to make a consumer product. And so it was one of those situations where I was asked to do something that I had absolutely zero training in. And they were hiring me strictly, I think, because I had the PhD, right? So they were hoping that I would know how to think and how to ask questions and essentially learn how to do the job once I was already doing the job.
Amber's career journey is a testament to what it looks like to be hired not necessarily for the qualifications on paper. The leaders that hired her saw potential for growth within Amber, which ultimately opened the door for her to learn.
So part of my job is responsibilities for our global baby care business. And so taking care of preservation systems for wet wipes and microbiome research and understanding infant skin and intimate wellness for women and kind of a broad spectrum of R&D. And then on the other side of that is my manager role. So like I mentioned, I recently promoted to group head. And so I have a few direct reports now. And so in addition to managing the people, it's also thinking about their jobs, their work-life balance, their day-to-day responsibilities. Some of the things that I work on are financial, right? You always have budgets and how are you going to make certain projects work. Some are HR related, making sure that people get their maternity leaves or their vacation, or how are they handling relationships with other people. And then the bigger portion of that is actually thinking about the bigger picture for our company and for our products, and thinking about consumers. What is it that they want? What is it that they need? And ultimately, the most important thing is it safe? And can I deliver what you're asking me in a very safe manner?
Amber's role at P&G has a lot of different facets to it. But despite all the different hats she has to wear, she's still able to work in areas she's passionate about.
So one big part of it is actually the microbiome research. I think there's a lot we can still learn about a person's microbiome and how it can be beneficial for them and how they can utilize it to be their most healthy self. And then I think on the other side of that, I'm a people person. I mean, Jane, you know me, I'm extroverted. I have no problem walking up to somebody and being like, hey, do you want to be my best friend? And so I think I've really gotten a lot of enjoyment out of just having those daily conversations with the people that work for me and better understanding what their needs are. And like when I see them get promoted, for example, I'm all in. I'm ready to go.
Amber loves leading and working alongside people. And the number one way she thrives in her role at Procter and Gamble, or any job she takes on, is her dedication to open communication.
I believe that you have to have that open line with real-time feedback. That's the other important part of that, right? Is that you can have thoughts, you can want to share with people how they're doing, what is their performance, what do they need to work on. But if that's not in real time, then they're not going to be able to put it into practice, right? So I need my people to be honest with me, tell me when I'm messing up or when they need help. And I know that they're also expecting me to be honest with them. And so you've probably heard me say this before, Jane, but for everybody else, I always like to say that if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. And what I mean by that is that, yes, there's an opportunity to teach, and we should always be striving to learn from others and help others. But at the end of the day, it's teamwork and positive collaboration that's going to be critical for success, especially in R&D. Like, we really need innovation. And for innovation to be successful, we need that positive collaboration, not just with diversity, but also learning from others. So if I'm the smartest person in the room, I don't necessarily have the opportunity to learn more. Versus if I go out and find people who don't study microbiology, for example, and know better about consumers or safety or whatever it is, it ends up making a better product, and it makes a more successful team as a whole.
We're going to take a short break, and when we return, Amber shares more about how she prioritizes collaboration in her leadership. So don't go anywhere. You won't want to miss it. In honor of Women's History Month, let's celebrate the remarkable women in your life who are making an impact through their work. Join us in supporting the mission of Polish Network. Will you join us in reaching our $15,000 goal? You can make an incredible impact by donating to our campaign today. Your contribution directly fosters spiritual connection, fuels professional growth, and combats isolation for women in the workforce. Support our ongoing mission by giving your gift at polishnetwork.org/give, or you can click the link in our show note. Together, let's create a supportive space where women flourish. Join us in emboldening women in their faith and work today. If you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. And this is a sentence I've heard Amber quote multiple times. It really makes me think about how I carry myself as a leader at work. Because honestly, it's all about creating a team environment where we can collaborate and keep learning and growing together?
I think the most obvious answer is respect, right? You have to have respect at the forefront of everything. And it's critical that everyone understands that we're all people. We all have our own voice, and we're all coming from our own unique circumstances and background. P&G has this phrase, and my husband groans whenever I say it out loud, but it's help me understand. And it makes a lot of sense, and I really enjoy it, especially for my team, because what it means is that instead of just jumping in and saying, "You're wrong, Jane, you're wrong, you did this wrong," right? Or
Girl.
this is my opinion, okay?
Sure.
Instead of doing that, you're taking a step back and you're saying, "Help me understand. Help me understand what it is that you're saying, or what you're seeing here. What is the picture that I'm missing?" And in the end of the day, maybe they are still wrong, but at least you understand why, and you can either help them understand what the correct way should be or what the correct path should be, or you understand that maybe you're wrong or maybe you weren't seeing the full picture, right? And so I think by having the respect to stop and do some really truly authentic, active listening, you take the opportunity to put your judgment aside and look at what people are saying and where they're coming from. And it actually allows for stronger collaboration, right? And with stronger collaboration, you get better innovation, you get better teamwork, you get better products going out the door at the end of the day. And as part of the respect portion of that, I also take the time to focus not only on what didn't work, but also what did work. Because in R&D, science, you try something 100 times and you're not going to get it right 99 times. So that doesn't mean that you're not learning from those 99 times, but each time you're learning something new, something that's making you better, making you stronger, making you smarter, making your product better. And that's great to learn, and that's kind of inherent. But what I like to do is take a minute at the end and show respect for what worked. And like, yay, great, we won, but can we repeat that win? What worked? And so instead of just immediately jumping on to the next project, let's take a minute and celebrate and say, did this work because of XYZ? Was it because of this team coming together? Was it because we looked at 10 consumers instead of 1,000, or vice versa, right? It was something that was integral to lead to that success. And how can we utilize that and reapply it for our next project?
Wow. So are you saying that with every single project that you do with your team, you have like a team debrief where you run down? Is that part of your process? And you go over like what didn't work and what did work, and we celebrate? That is powerful. I think celebration is such a key piece, because I feel like that draws your team together, because it's like, look what we accomplished together. It wasn't, for as many challenges or things that may have been dropped or mistakes made or whatever, like that's going to come. But this level of respect, this foundation of respect that you're talking about, that's part of it, of celebrating what was right. And, we did a good thing. Let's do it again. Let's try it again. Right. And I think that's key to leading with collaboration. And, I'm curious, especially in lieu of the story that you shared, like your work journey and just how you come to Procter and Gamble. I'm sure as you're managing your team, you are being very intentional of understanding your teammates, your team members. But how do you go about identifying and leveraging the unique strengths and capabilities of the individuals within your team?
Yeah, that can be a really hard one, right? Because especially with being a global company, you can have people on different continents that you're trying to get to work together in different time zones. So I have direct reports that I split time with them. You take a morning meeting, I'll take the night meeting this week. Let's switch next week. Those types of things. And I think what the key is you really just have to slow down. You have to slow down and take a second to listen and to watch your people, because often people aren't really aware of their own strengths. And now that may mean they're just modest, right? Especially as women, we don't tend to be like, I'm awesome at this, this, and this, right? Like we don't tend to do that as often as our male colleagues. But sometimes they really just don't see it. And so how others see you can be a lot different than how you see yourself. So it's really important not just to ask them like, hey, what do you like to do? What are your capabilities? But you should also observe them when they're in their element and see what is it that they're actually good at? And what do you observe is bringing them joy? And is there room for improvement somewhere? And I think that by encompassing that, you can better understand diverse teams. And I really do love diverse teams. Now, there's a lot of tools out there that help you learn more about yourself, right? You've heard of Clifton Strengths, Myers-Briggs, there's Enneagrams, there's all these programs that, every company throws at all their people and are like, learn about yourself. What are you? Who do you like? And I think it's a really good start, but it's not the end all be all to everything. I think that you also have to meet people where they are and learn from them in a real world context. So, for example, some people are really visual learners, right? Other people are auditory learners. So the way that you present data to them might have to be different. In my team, I have a few people that are very big picture oriented. Like they need to know exactly what this is going to mean for, the world in general. Like, why are we doing sustainable packaging? And why are we doing this? Like they have to understand that. Versus I have other people that are very analytically thought-based and they want to be in the weeds. They want to know the base of everything is on data. So where's my data point that says this is where you want this and this is how I'm going to get there? And so the way that you approach those two people is going to be very different. And you have to respect that the way they approach you is also going to be very different, if that makes sense.
Right. No, it does. And I'm curious because, you named, I know they were just two examples, but like the ones that are super analytical and get in the weeds, that drives me nuts. Like, I'll just be honest, it just drives me nuts. And I say that knowing, I guess I'm more self-aware these days. I say that going like, okay, there are people like when I am in meetings and they start getting in the weeds. Oh, Amber, it really drags my soul. It drains my soul a little bit. And I sit there and I go, why are we in the weeds? Because I think I'm recognizing I'm the big picture, like vision, like where are we going? And let's just go. Let's like not. And I guess what I'm trying to say is like, we need both. And I think there is a call in what I'm hearing with what you just shared, that there is a need for both and they're both good. And we need to understand each other in those moments because it can be a little draining. I'm curious, like what kind of person are you? What kind of when it comes to
I'm the big picture person.
You are.
I am. Yeah. I know that about you too. I've noticed it in some of our small groups together. It's definitely, I'm a big picture person as well. Every once in a while, if the topic's right, I'll get in the weeds, but it has to be under very specific circumstances. So it's always good to have those people in my team because they definitely catch the small details that I may have glossed over.
Yeah. Well, and what I also liked about it, I liked that you said you have to slow down. And within this day and age, that is so hard. And I think about just like this tension, because there's a tension to slow down, but then also to be effective and efficient in the work that you're doing. How do you navigate that in the work that you do?
I think you have to find a balance, and there has to be an efficacy behind it, right? An efficiency that comes with slowing down. If you are, slowing down for the purpose of slowing down and just taking time to do things, yes, you are not going to make it in the business world, because at the end of the day, we're always looking for the next best thing. You want to beat the competition to the market for XYZ, whatever it is. And there's definitely that pressure there. But if at the end of the day, by taking that minute to figure out what the roles should be in the team and really observing where people's strengths are, you're actually going to get to that finish line a lot faster and a lot more efficiently with a much better product. And so I think sometimes it's a matter of just managing up. So you're telling your own management saying, I know I need a minute, and then trust me, we're going to get on the ball and we're going to go, and we're going to go hard, and it's going to work out. Right. And I think once you start to get your own rhythm and your management starts to see that too, that this way is working for your team and that you are being this, quick efficiency once you get going. I think people start to understand it. I know my own manager has even said like, okay, you get your day and then we need to go.
Well, that's so true. And I mean, thank God for managers that are like, all right, I'm going to take a risk, because that's part of business too, right? Is taking risks, the smart risks, but to take risks. And, that's what I'm hearing is just it pays to slow down because the quality is going to be much better if you just give me a day or give me a minute, to get my team together, and we will, like you said, there's efficacy behind it. So I think that's a good word for all of us to kind of contemplate and think about, especially, I know we have a lot of leaders that listen to this podcast and a lot of women who are in various industries, that are leading teams and learning how to collaborate and empower and embolden their teams. Another piece to this podcast that we really like to talk about is how our faith is integrated into the work that we do. I know, especially working for a big corporate company like yours, faith, may not be like an outright, like you're not a nonprofit ministry. You are in the workplace. You are working alongside people of different backgrounds, different faiths. But, I'm curious, as a woman in leadership at Procter and Gamble, managing a team, you are a woman of faith. I know this about you, and I just have seen so much growth in you as you walk with the Lord. And I'm curious how you bring your faith into the workplace and how you do that.
Yeah, I think this can be a struggle for people, especially in the R&D community, right? Because if I say I'm a scientist, the first thing that pops into most people's head is she's an atheist. She must be, right? That's the only answer if she's looking at Darwinism or whatever, right? And so I think when people actually get to know me and they understand like, oh, hey, she's a Christian. She was just talking about baptism? What? I think it takes a second for people to really realize that. And I don't necessarily say that I walk around, the company with like a big cross necklace that's, telling everybody. But there is that little bit of, I think you can bring it to work in a way that lets people know more about your faith than just verbally even saying it, right? So the golden rule, treat others as you want to be treated. We all want to be seen. We all want to be heard. And there used to be this song way back when, and it was like, they will know we are Christians by our love. I don't know if you remember that song or not, but I remember that growing up. And that's kind of always stuck with me. And I think that at the end of the day, the Lord made very curious creatures. He made people who are wanting to grow, wanting to learn, wanting to better understand the world around us. And I don't think those have to be separate things. I think we can very easily combine what we want to know with what we want to know. Right. And what did God give us, and how can we learn more about it and have better respect for it and better honor him? And I think those things all come together, especially when we think about products and trying to make things better for the world or make things better for people. And I think that the biggest thing that I try to do to integrate my faith is just really push people to be their authentic selves, because that's what he created us for, right? I think we as women often feel that there's this bar that we have to reach or this hurdle that we have to get over. And sometimes we forget that we are who God made us to be, and that we don't have to be someone else, right? If the Lord wanted there to be two of my boss, he would have gave that mama twins, right? Like there's a reason why I have my own skills. And I try to do that with my team too, is that if you really want to honor him, you have to use the skills that he gave you to be authentically you, your God-given strengths, your God-given skills to get where you want to go. And in fact, this recently came up with one of my reports because she was having a lot of trouble finding balance. And what I found out very quickly after 2 seconds of the conversation was that she had a case of the shoulds. Should I be doing this? And should I be doing that? Right? And so we sat down and had a conversation about why she thinks she should be doing anything other than what she already was doing. And I think we all get stuck into this, right? It's really easy in life to be looking at your life and saying, I should be able to handle my kids having this tantrum in the grocery store, right? I should be able to work a full day, get home, make dinner, do homework, and still have time to have a romantic evening with my husband. I should be able to manage these 6 projects because a person over here is doing it, right? And I think one of the things I like to mention with my team and to try to help them put in perspective is that at the end of the day, you are only remembering Instagram moms that are showing you only their best side on their best day. And that person over there that has the 6 projects, they might be dropping the ball on 5 of them. You just don't realize it. And that marriage you're comparing yours to probably doesn't really exist. And at the end of the day, we all have strengths. We all have weaknesses. And we have to approach that authentically and really leave our shoulds behind us.
Leave our shoulds behind us. Amber, I'm writing that one down because it's so true. Like, I think somewhere along the line, and I know I'm speaking from my experience, like we believe this lie that we should be able to do it all. See, I used a should right there. We should be able to do it all, but you can't. You can't do it all because if everything's a priority, nothing's a priority. You can't do anything well. And you're dropping balls all over the place. And what I love is this idea of like bringing your whole authentic self into the workplace. And part of that is your faith. And it's the skills that God created you with. It's the talent he's given you. It's the opportunities he's opened the doors for you. And you recognizing that, I think that what I heard was it informs like the posture you bring into the workplace. Faith, bringing your faith into your work or integrating your faith into your work is not getting on a, soapbox in the middle of the lunchroom and having an altar call, which I think a lot of people at first, hearing or at first glance of this whole idea of faith at work, that's not what that is. It's how you show up. And I feel like with what you've shared with us today and what I've observed in you personally is you do that. You show up, in this posture of like, this is who I am today. I'm a child of God. I'm going to do the work that's in front of me. And you know what? Life's going to happen too. So you might come in like one of the kids woke up sick overnight and you're like, well, I'm tired, Amber, today, and I have this much to give. God, provide my daily bread, but, I think that's a real key piece, is when we talk about our faith life, really it's our life, because our faith should be a reflection of the way that we live, right? Like how we show up and posture ourselves. Gosh, like I love that. And leave the shoulds at home for real.
It's a hard one to get past, but it's definitely 10 out of 10 recommend.
10 out of 10. Absolutely. You had said earlier that, diverse teams like really matter to you. And, part of leading collaboratively is thinking intentionally of how we diversify our teams and who we, recruit to come on our teams, especially with this diversity piece in mind. So how has embracing diversity, whether in terms of their backgrounds or their skills or their perspectives, have influenced the overall creativity and the problem-solving capacity of your team?
Yeah, I think the respect comes back to that, right? Because I think diversity is huge. And I personally love healthy debate. I love it when I'm learning new things from people with very different perspectives. And there's kind of 2 people that I've noticed exist at least in the work life that I've noticed. Okay. And I'm going to put them into categories for you. The first is the collaborator. And the second is what I call the individualist. And there's nothing wrong with either in theory, but I'm going to tell you why I prefer to work with the collaborator. Okay. The collaborator is somebody who brings a team of experts together. They have one meeting. They hash out all the details of what needs to be done, still needs to be done, what has to happen in order to see success in something. Okay, that's option number one. Number two is the individualist. The individualist has individual meetings with each expert, gets their inputs, puts it all together, and really makes a good summary of it. Okay. That's great. That works for some teams. That works for some people. The problem I have with that is that none of us really get the full story in order to give the best right answer, right? So if I'm basing my job or my answer on only a really small portion of the big picture, I might not actually be giving the best answer. And so I kind of like to think of it this way. If I told you, Jane, I need you to pick a color for a painting that I'm making, and that's all I tell you, right? You only know that I have a painting. So you're sitting there thinking to yourself like, well, it's kind of sunny today. I bet you she's making a sunrise. Because she's doing a sunrise, I'm going to make it orange. You should use orange, right? Now, in reality, I have been thinking about panda bears, and I really want to paint a panda bear in a bamboo forest. Okay. Would you still use orange? Now that you know that my objective is to do a panda bear in a bamboo forest, right? So when you bring people together and let everyone hear all the details, they make better, well-informed decisions that end up driving not only better innovation, but also better products, right? So I don't need 20 other microbiologists all agreeing with me. What I need is 20 people across products research, packaging, engineering, safety, quality assurance, marketing, to tell me what it is that I'm missing, what am I not seeing, and what is going to make it better, so that way when it gets on market, when it gets on shelf, it's a success. Right. And in the same way, I don't need 20 other straight middle-class Caucasian brunettes on my team, because all of those consumers that I'm feeding for the entire world, they don't fit in that category. Right. So what do the other socioeconomic classes need? Other genders, other races? What do they need? Right. So how does even more mentally thinking, right? So like, how will an artist see my product versus a lawyer versus a doctor versus a stay-at-home first-time parent? Right. So like I mentioned before, I work on baby wipes. You know this. But what I think is important as a mom of two living in Cincinnati, Ohio, right, is not necessarily going to be the same as someone who may be checking ingredient lists to make sure it doesn't have perfumes because their kid has a sensitivity that my kid never had. Or maybe they're buying the prettiest package because they have some kind of like teal color like theme going on in their baby's room. Maybe this mom really just has to go with the cheapest option because she is just trying to get by, right? And so without those different perspectives, I think you really start to miss something. And at the end of the day, it's that diversity that you really have to embrace and accept and realize that they're going to come up with things you never thought of. And it's not that they're wrong. It's just different.
Yeah. Oh man, life is so complex. And I think it would do us all a good service to just, like you said earlier, slow down, learn to understand, and to actively listen to people who live different lives than you. Because just like you shared, like I never even consider with baby wipes, like the different categories of who could be purchasing your product. Like, because I'm a mom of 3. And none of my kids have had reactions to baby wipes, but I know families who have. And I remember when someone shared that with me the first time, I was shocked. I was like, that can happen. That can happen. Just assume if that question comes into your mind, can that happen? It probably can, because just because it hasn't happened to you or you haven't experienced it doesn't mean somebody else hasn't. And you need those voices in the room to help make better decisions, more well-informed decisions, like you said, and to be more creative and think outside the box and innovative in the work that you do.
Agreed. And I think when you embrace the diversity too, I think one of the key steps is letting everybody take a minute to just understand, right? Because once you have that big picture, it can really help people understand what they're working for if everybody gets a chance to kind of explain it all and get their individual components put together, right? Because I had like a teacher once that told me that if you can't explain your doctoral thesis to a 10-year-old in a way that makes sense to them, you don't understand it well enough. right? And so,
Wow.
and that actually really stuck with me. And it seems to be true because like my first year of my PhD, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm studying abiotic factors of this, this, and this. And, like trying to throw out every big word I can to sound fancy to my siblings, right? And it's because I didn't truly understand it. It wasn't until I actually went and started writing it that I'm like, oh, it's climate change. That's what I'm studying. I'm studying climate change, and I find that that's the same even in our company, that, you can start to get in the weeds on things, but it's not until you can actually say, I work on preservation systems that prevent diaper rash. That's my job. That is the take home message for R&D. Right. And the person that comes to you and is like, I do GCMS for this chemistry and this chemistry. It's like, do you really know what you do? And I think by embracing that diversity and taking a second to say, this is where my part of the story fits in with yours, and your part of the story fits in here. Here's the full on the market shelf product that I have, and this is my part of it that I'm working on.
Oh my gosh. Yes. Yes to all of it, Amber. What a gift. This is such a good reminder, and it just aligns everything. And here's what I'm hearing. You bring your whole self to work. You listen, you slow down, and you seek to understand. Like that just seems to be the key to leading with collaboration overall. Well, stay tuned as we're about to break for a moment to bring you exciting opportunities to connect with Polish Network. But when we come back, Amber's stepping into the Ask Me Anything hot seat. So keep those ears on. Discover the power of communication at our Polish Network chapter gathering events this month. Communication is the cornerstone of effective leadership, and we're diving deep into this vital skill. From understanding its impact on company trajectory to fostering strong team relationships, we'll explore how communication shapes every aspect of leadership. So join us at a Polish chapter near you and unlock the secrets to great communication. Visit polishnetwork.org/chapters to learn more and RSVP today. Well, welcome back, Polish friends, to the Polished Podcast. We hope you're enjoying the conversation we're having with today's guest, Amber Teufel. And now it's time to add a dash of spontaneity and a sprinkle of fun to the show. It's time for Ask Me Anything. So, Amber, this is how Ask Me Anything works. This is a chance for us to peel back the layers, get to know the woman behind the work, the quirks behind the expertise, and I'm going to ask you a few questions that I and our audience have curated, and we just want to follow our curiosity to know more about you. Do you think you can handle it?
Try my best.
Oh, yes. Well, we'll start off with, I think, maybe it's easy, maybe not. It's International Women's Month when we're posting this episode. Who are the women that have inspired and influenced you the most, and in what ways have they done so?
Oh, who has inspired me the most? I think on a personal level, it's my mom, 100%.
Love it.
It sounds super, super obvious, but she grew up with nothing. She grew up in the middle of nowhere, Virginia. She got her life together, raised babies, got a job. She is the one that was telling me from day one, like, do not stay in a small town. Go get an education. Go be wonderful, and don't let anybody do anything to you, right? Like, she was full-fledged woman power from the beginning. Go out, be amazing, do anything you want to do. If anybody gets in your way, take care of it, right? Like, she was full mafia, right? And I think that gave me a really strong foundation that then got followed up by really strong educational women. When I did my PhD at Miami, we went to Antarctica. My primary investigator, the person who was my boss, woman. She rocked it. She was phenomenal. She is one of the most intelligent people I have ever met in my life. She goes into the field, is staying in a place that is sub-zero temperatures at all times, doing fundamental research and sleeping in a tent. And I'm sitting there looking at her my very first night, freezing my butt off. And I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to survive this. And I'm looking at her and I'm like, she just took her coat off because she's already comfortable. She's cool. Like, I want to be her, right? Like, not only is she super intelligent, but she's also handling this as if, this is a day at the beach. And I was just so floored by that. And then I got through my PhD, I got into my job, and I recently got a brand new mentor who is awesome. She is one of these women who was in the company back when women still had to wear skirts, and was hired at a time where really, if you were a woman, you were probably an administrator, like a secretary, and she paved the way. And to hear her stories about how she got to where she is has just been absolutely phenomenal for me. So I think just in general, surrounding myself with famous to me, not maybe in the news or anything, but amazing women who have done exactly what I want to do and where I want to be, I think has been like kind of the biggest thing for me.
Oh, I love that. Wow. You've had such great influential women in your life, and I love it. I love it. I love it. Amber, do you have a hobby or an activity that you enjoy that people might be surprised to learn about you?
Well, the safe one is I like to read, but the not so safe one is my husband and I really enjoy spelunking and caving. And so one of the things we like to do is actually get underground and explore new places that most of the people in the world don't get the opportunity to see. And so that's kind of fun.
How often do you do this? This is news to me, and we've been friends for a while.
I would like to say it's more often than it is. Since I had babies, it's cut down a little bit, but we used to go a few times a year. And there's some really great cave systems just across the border in Kentucky that are really nice to do weekend trips for and take the kids camping and get the kids underground too.
Yeah, I have an irrational fear of caves, and my husband has been trying to drag me down across that border to go into one. So maybe he can go with you guys the next time.
He's welcome to come. I love Brian.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, my final question for you is, what's the most valuable lesson life has taught you so far?
Whatever you think your plan is, you're wrong. And I say that because it has happened multiple times in my life where I have something new, something exciting, and I have a timeline for it, and none of it ever happens, right? and what I've learned is that better things happen. So, for example, I mentioned early on, right, that I wanted to go to medical school. I had it in my head. I was going to go to medical school. I got there, realized it wasn't for me. Ended up doing grad school instead. That ended up putting me about 4 years behind most of the other people in my graduate program age-wise. And I was super bummed about it. It did not fit my timeline. It didn't fit my timeline for getting a husband and having children and this, that, and the other. And then I met my husband. And he was just coming into the university at that exact same time. And had I been there 4 years earlier, I never would have met him. I wouldn't have had that opportunity to have him, to have the life that I have now. And then once we got married, I had another timeline. I was going to graduate. I was going to get a postdoc. We were going to have babies. And then I was going to get a big girl job. And what ended up happening is we couldn't get pregnant. And we're struggling, and we weren't getting pregnant. And so I went to the doctor. Come to find out, I've got thyroid cancer. Yay. That wasn't on my to-do list.
Wow.
But it was because we were trying to get pregnant. And so the obstetrician happened to think about it, got it tested, come to find out we found this, right? And so we got it early. It's gone. No more thyroid. I got a pretty little scar to prove it. And what's even better, I've got 2 beautiful babies now because they got rid of the problem, right? Like they were able to get it out, get rid of the cancer, get rid of that. Instantly, right after surgery. That was like the very next month I was pregnant. So it was meant to be at that time. And we were on our way back to Ohio then. So I had finished the postdoc postdoc. We were, further along than what I had originally thought of, but now we had family, and we had moved back to Ohio, and we're back with this support system. We joined our current church, which is where I met the lovely Jane Dorman, and I got this support system that I wouldn't have had there, to be perfectly honest. Like in New York, I didn't have that support system. I didn't have that church.
Sure.
I didn't have all the things that I didn't realize I didn't have. And so by taking a minute, pausing, not only did I get rid of something that could have potentially really been a killer issue, but it also gave me the opportunity to raise our children in a much better space, not just geographically, but also from a community standpoint. And those are just the two biggest examples. But as I think back over my life and even my career, it has happened time and time again. I think I know when something's going to happen and when the optimal time is, and I get knocked on my butt, and then it's like, nope, wait, okay, now you can have it. And it's so much better than what I would have thought of.
Well, thanks for sharing that, Amber.
You're welcome.
I had forgotten those pieces of your story. I remember you sharing that, as you were bringing it up, and I'm like, oh my goodness, yes, you did go through that. Yes, you did, And I'm so glad God brought you here to Ohio for us to meet. And I even think how God knit our stories together. That's a story for another time, but long story short, I met Philip's mom and dad at a small group that my husband and I were a part of for a season. And then when we started a new life group, Claire introduced me to Amber because Amber was this new, young, soon-to-be mom that just moved into town. And they're like, yeah, can you have them come to your life group? I said, yeah, sure. And the rest is history. So I'm just really thankful for you and just the friendship you bring to my life.
And for all the listeners, just so you know, Jane is actually the one that got in and baptized me when I was finally ready. So Jane has played a very instrumental part of my life, and you all are very, very, very lucky to get to hear her all the time.
Oh, Amber, you are too sweet. Well, I'm going to interrupt this what?
Love Fest?
What is Love Fest? Yes. And we'll wrap up this segment. Hey, Amber, I really appreciate you sharing with us, just little bits of your story outside of the context of what we were talking about earlier. But here's the thing, friends, we want you to be a part of the conversation too. We want your burning questions and your curious musings and your wild wonderings about our guests. So if there's something, anything that you want to ask, now is your chance. Go to polishnetwork.org/podcast. Submit your questions there. Be a Polish Podcast MVP and send in those questions today. You'll get a mention. You'll get insight to your favorite guests. And we can't wait to dive into those queries and to unveil the surprises that await. So send those questions in today. What advice would you offer us as we seek to foster collaboration and unlock collective potential within our own teams and organizations? And how can maybe we use our faith to influence us in that?
Yeah, I think the best option would be to spend some time learning how to listen and also to how to coach. Coaching training has been really wonderful for me because it teaches you not only how to listen, but also how to guide people to get to their own conclusions. I found that a lot of people don't want to be told what to do. Right. But they want to get there and they know what the objective is. They know where they're trying to get to. But if you can help guide them to get there on their own, not only are they going to understand it better, but they're going to own it at that point. And I think that's similar in our faith journey too, right? Because you've heard his name. Right. But that doesn't make you a true believer. It doesn't mean that, you're going to be all in just because you heard Joe Smo talking about this guy, Jesus. Right. But instead, when you really get lost in the book, right, you actually do a deep dive into understanding the teachings and you learn for yourself, what it means to be a Christian and what it means to follow Jesus and put all your faith in God. At that point, you're better understanding not only yourself, but also his love for you. And I think there's a big difference of being told what to do and really believing it in yourself. And I think you can apply that to religion. You can apply that to work. You can apply that to parenting, right? No teenager wants to be told you can't go out with XYZ, but if you help them get there on their own, then it's their idea and they understand why that you have the reservations that you do.
That's a good word for all of us. We need to take ownership, and part of that is helping others understand the why. So I think that's, we've had a lot of nuggets, a lot of takeaways from this conversation. And Amber, before we wrap things up, do you have any recommendations or of any particular resources based on what we've talked about today that maybe we could link in our show notes for people to check out as well?
I think there's a lot of really great speakers and books out there. But honestly, I don't think it matters as much as which one. Just do one, right? I think find something that is important to you, research it, go read about it. I think one of the best pieces of advice that I ever got was to walk up to somebody and just ask them, what is your perception of me? And ask them to be honest. Don't interrupt them. Don't get mad at them when they tell you, right? And I've learned that sometimes what we think we're doing is not what's being received by others. And so their perception of you may not be what you intended. So I encourage all of you listeners, go be bold. Go ask people that you trust. Find out if what you're putting out there in the universe is the same as what people are receiving from you, and then adjust accordingly.
Wow. I love that. Man, Amber, it has been such a treat to just talk with you. I get to talk with you a lot because we live locally, but I was really excited to share you with our audience and your story and your insight. I just really appreciate you and just the story that you're living. So good work, friend. I'm really proud to know you.
Oh, thanks, friend. Always a pleasure.
Today's conversation with Dr. Amber Teufel has challenged me to consider how deepening my understanding of others will lead to more innovative ideas. How about you? What is your takeaway from today's conversation? Here are 5 more of mine. You have to meet people where they are and learn from them in a real-world context. Slowing down and seeking to understand leads to more efficiency. At the end of the day, we all have strengths, we all have weaknesses, and we have to approach that authentically and really leave our shoulds behind us. Embracing diversity reveals a bigger picture. And if you want to grow, you need to be honest about what you want. Well, let's compare notes. I want to know what your key takeaways are from our conversation today. You can share those on our Instagram post for this episode, or if you're watching online on YouTube, leave them in the comments below and let me know what's resonating with you. As we draw near to the end of this episode, I want to extend our deepest appreciation to those who make the Polish Podcast possible. The Polish Podcast is supported in part by a grant from Coca-Cola Consolidated. Special thanks to Dr. Amber Teufel for challenging us to posture our hearts toward a deeper understanding of ourselves and each other. To our listeners, thank you for your unwavering support. Your engagement and your feedback drive us to create content that resonates with you. A heartfelt thank you to the Polish Network for cultivating a community where working women can thrive and connect. Thank you to White Oak Christian Church for your partnership and generosity in the production process of these episodes. And if you're questioning the worth of your current surroundings, remember this.
If you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room.
Be sure to stay connected with us on social media and on our YouTube channel. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you could, please rate and review the Polish Podcast as well. Until next time, this is Jane Dorman signing off. Keep moving forward and remain emboldened.